Let's slow this down for a second because I want you to picture something. You're sitting in a McDonald's. Doesn't matter when, doesn't even matter where. Could be after a game, could be on a road trip, could be late night when you probably shouldn't be eating McDonald's. But you're there anyways. You've got a bag right in front of you. You got some fries, got a burger, got a drink. But that's not what you're focused on. You reach into that bag. You pull out the fries. Stuck to the side, it's that little sticker, that teeny little flimsy peelable square. And just for a second, everything pauses because there's a thought that hits you. What if this is it? It sounds pretty ridiculous, even probably saying it out loud, but in that moment, you believe it because they told you to believe it. They told you that, this could be worth something. This could be the one. Somebody has to win. And that last part, well, that's the hook because someone has to win. So why not you? You peel it slowly, carefully, like somehow that's going to change what's underneath, right? And most of the time, it's nothing. Maybe free fries, maybe a free drink, something small. But every once in a while, you get something different. You get a property, you get a part of a set. And suddenly, now you're close. Now you're not just playing, you're invested because all you need is that last piece. And that's where they get you. That's where the game lives. Not in winning, but in almost winning. Now, here's the part that nobody thinks about. Where do those winning pieces come from? Who decides where they go? How do they get distributed? And more importantly, who's making sure that that process is actually fair? Because today, we're going to talk about what happens, well, when the person in charge of that system decides to stop playing by the rules. This isn't a theory. This isn't a rumor. This is a real FBI case. By the time it was over, millions of dollars had been quietly redirected. Dozens of people were involved, and one of the most trusted games in America was exposed as something very different than what people believed. This is the McDonald's Monopoly scam. What's up, everybody? This is going to be a doozy. The voice you're hearing, it's me, it's Matt, it's Beardlaws. And joining me, as always, on the Triple T podcast, who has also been a co-host on, Stay Out of My Fridge and some other projects that we have done here, is Luther Grimwood.
Luther Grimwood, the legend himself. I mean, what project hasn't this guy touched? Always bringing that perfect blend of chaos and charm. So what rabbit hole are we dragging everyone down today, Luther?
Well, I'm Matt Beardlaws. You're Luther. We do this every episode. Real funny. It's not getting old at all. And apparently you weren't listening to the intro, but we are doing the McDonald's Monopoly scam today.
Ah, the McDonald's Monopoly scam. The ultimate tale of fries, fraud, and felons. All right, I'll behave. I guess it's time we dive into the sneaky heist that turned Happy Meals into criminal meals. Let's unravel this thing.
Before we do, let's give a quick shout out to the friends of the show, because if it wasn't for them, well, we're probably still not here. Shout out Live Bearded. As you can see, not only do I have a Live Bearded hat, but I got a Live Bearded flannel. They got all sorts of merch, but more importantly, they have things to take care of not only your beard, but your armpits. And if you want to smell good, they also have a utility spray. Head over to livebearded.com. You can use code BEARDLOSS if you want to save some money, or you can pay full price. That's on you. But again, my go-to products, livebearded.com.
Well, there you have it. Whether it's beard, pits, or just the general aura of awesomeness, Live Bearded's got you covered. And hey, if you're paying full price, well, I guess you just love supporting them even more. No judgment. Now, with our beards properly sponsored, let's crack into the scam.
Well, I guess you're really in a hurry to get into this. I was going to ask you how your week's been going. I was going to ask you all this stuff, but you just want to really get into this, huh?
Oh, you know me. I'm like a dog with a bone when there's a juicy story. But hold up, I'm not going rogue. How's your week been? Any wild tales from the North Country? If it involves a beard, a ball game, or a random street side, I'm all ears.
Well, nothing crazy, man. Just coaching, waiting for winter to try to go away. We got a little bit of snow, a little bit of some ice. Softball still inside a gym, and it's a brutal schedule. But hey, we're getting there, and yeah, we're getting there.
The classic North Country. Sounds like classic North Country. Spring shows up whenever it feels like it, right? But hey, that gym is just giving those softballers extra time to become indoor legends. Once that snow melts, though, it's game on, and I'm ready for all the epic plays.
Yeah, you are. All right, you're impatient. What do you say we get into this? And I think to understand how this was even possible, you truly need to understand how the game behind the scenes worked. Should I get into it, Luther? You good? You braced? You ready?
Oh, I'm beyond ready. I've got my seatbelt fastened and my fries in hand. Hit me with the behind the scenes mechanics. Let's see how those golden arches got bent.
Ooh. All right, well, from the outside, it feels pretty simple. You buy food, you peel a sticker, maybe you win. But behind that simplicity was a very controlled system. McDonald's didn't run this alone. They actually partnered with a company called Simon Marketing. Simon Marketing was responsible for designing the game, printing the pieces, distributing the winning tickets, managing security. And the security part, I feel like that's everything because not all game pieces were equal. Not even close. There were common pieces which were printed in massive quantities. Then you had some semi rare pieces, which obviously a little bit harder to find. Then you had the rare pieces. And the rare pieces were the key to the biggest prize. You know, the cars, the cash, the trips, the $1 million payouts. And those rare pieces, they were treated like high value assets. They weren't just thrown into the mix randomly, they were actually printed separately, secured, tracked, and transported under controlled conditions. Think armored transport level thinking, because these weren't just pieces of paper; they were guarantees.
And this is where the plot thickens. When you've got prizes worth $1 million, you've basically got the golden ticket to temptation. And as we know, someone decided to turn that security into their personal piggy bank. So let's find out how those rare pieces started walking out the door.
Yeah, don't give any spoilers, right? I'm trying to really build the story, Luther. You're so impatient. But either way, if you had one of those pieces, you won. There was no randomness left. The randomness was in who got it. At least that's what people thought, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely. Everyone peeling those stickers thought they were on an even playing field. Meanwhile, someone behind the curtain was playing Monopoly with the Monopoly. But I'll zip it. Let's let the scandal unfold step by step.
Listen, I know you well enough. You're not going to zip it. And that's okay because it would be a pretty boring podcast if I just sat here and chatted for the next 20 something minutes, right?
You're right. Me staying quiet would be like a beard without the beard. Totally pointless. So don't worry, I'll be chiming in, whether it's with a joke, a fact, or just a dramatic gasp. Let's keep this thing entertaining.
All right, let's talk about the man that was the center of all of this. Jerome Jacobson, born in Ohio. I feel like Ohio's been making a lot of reference. And speaking of Ohio, go check out my friends over at the Dude Network. I just helped build them a new website, Dude Destinations, where they're traveling all over Ohio. And they're trying foods, they're recording it. It's a pretty cool site, if I must say. DudeDestinations.com. Let me know in the comments if I did well, and go give my dudes a follow, all right? So this guy, Jerome Jacobson, Ohio, former police officer, moved into the old private security work. Eventually, you guessed it, hired by Simon Marketing. This is where things start to get a little bit interesting because his role wasn't minor. He was actually involved in security oversight for the game. Specifically, he was part of the process that handled the distribution of the old high value game pieces, which meant he knew exactly where the winning pieces were. He knew how they were transported. He knew how they were protected. And most importantly, he knew where the system wasn't perfect because, well, no system is truly perfect, right?
Exactly. And Jerome didn't just spot the chinks in the armor, he brought a sledgehammer. When the guy holding the keys decides to pick the lock, you've got yourself a recipe for chaos. So, yeah, he knew the system's weak spots, and let's just say he made them work for him.
Yeah, and he knew the weak spot. And let's be honest, most secure processes, they rely on one thing: trust. And Jacobson, well, he was trusted until, well, he probably wasn't, huh?
Exactly. Once trust goes out the window, the whole house of cards comes down. And he didn't just break trust quietly, he orchestrated a full blown scheme. So I'm all ears. How did he take that trust and turn it into $1 million heist?
Well, before we get right to that, patience, my man. We're going to talk a little bit of something that yeah, let's go with this gets really real really quick because it's going to get a little human as well because at some point in the process, there were moments where the high value game pieces were physically handled. They were transferred, they were moved, and during one of those moments, Jacobson he had that like light bulb moment. There was an opportunity. Now, this didn't look like a big obvious flaw. It wasn't like a vault door was just left open. It was much smaller than that. It was subtle. It was a procedural gap, a moment where oversight wasn't constant, access was possible, and verification wasn't immediate. Because Jacobson was the person overseeing security, he wasn't being watched the same way others were. That's the irony. So the guy responsible from like preventing the theft had actually the best chance to commit it.
It's like putting the fox in charge of the hen house, except the fox wears a suit and has a clipboard. That tiny procedural crack gave him just enough wiggle room. And once that light bulb went off, oh, you know he couldn't resist. So I'm guessing that's where the dominoes start to fall. Let's hear how he pulled it off.
Yeah, I like that. The fox in charge of the hen, because we all know what that's going to mean, don't we? You're starting to heat up a little bit. You're like NBA Jam. He's heating up.
Oh, I'm definitely on fire. Just waiting for that boom shakalaka moment. Let's keep it rolling, because I can feel that big reveal coming, and I'm here for all of it.
Oh, you can feel the reveal. Oh, now you're Dr. Seuss. All right. This is where we slow down a little bit because this moment matters, in my opinion, the first time. It's the first time he takes a winning piece. There's no video, there's not a dramatic soundtrack, but we know it happened. Somewhere in that process, Jacobson removes a high value game piece. And now he's holding something that guarantees a win. Here's the key decision. He doesn't use it himself because that would be traceable. That would be stupid. Instead, he gives it to someone else, a contact, someone he trusts, and that person wins legitimately through the system. McDonald's validates it, processes it, pays it out. Nobody questions it because why would they? It looks exactly like it's supposed to.
And that's the genius of it. Well, criminal genius. One piece in the right hands, and the system says, yep, looks good. No alarms. It's the old hide in plain sight trick, except with a pile of cash. And once that worked once, I bet he thought, why stop now?
Well, this is the moment everything changes because now it's not a theory, it's not a risk, it's proof. He just controlled an outcome in a system designed to be random and nobody noticed. That's the dangerous part, not the theft, the success. Because success, it removes the fear. Once fear is gone, you start thinking a little bigger now, don't you, Luther? I'm not saying like, don't you, Luther, like you've done this before, you were involved, but I'm just like, you know what I'm saying.
Oh, I get you. Once that first hit of success lands, it's like a beard growing competition. You don't just stop with a little stubble, and he definitely didn't. So from this point, I'm guessing he goes from one off to, well, let's scale up this operation. Tell me how he gets bolder.
Oh, do you really want to know? All right. Well, Jacobson, he doesn't rush this. This wasn't sloppy. He builds it slowly, very carefully. He starts identifying people who can act as winners. And here's where real names start to come into play in this actual case. People connected through networks in places like Florida, Georgia, South Carolina. Many of the recruited winners, they were actually connected through intermediaries, including individuals like Gennaro Jerry Colombo, who became one of the key middlemen in the operation. Now, Colombo is an interesting. Let's go with character. He's an interesting character. He's not just some random guy. He has connections. He understands how things move quietly. And now you've got a structure forming. Jacobson supplies the winning pieces. Middlemen find the winners. Winners redeem the prizes. Money starts to flow back, and it's all happening right under the radar.
It's like a crime syndicate, but with Happy Meals. I mean, when you've got middlemen named Columbo, you know it's getting real. Quiet, organized, and just slick enough that it keeps running smoothly. But you know what they say? It only stays under the radar until it doesn't.
Speaking of radar, go check out last week's when the UFOs started to, attack Washington, D.C., and really nobody else heard about it, and the radars were going crazy. Great episode. We did it last week. Check it out. Either way, back to this week, because at this point, this isn't a mistake. This is a system. This is a system that's about to grow bigger than Jacobson probably ever imagined, because once other people realize that there's money in controlling luck, things don't stay small for long. So now we've got a system, not an idea, not a one time move, a system. Jerome Jacobson has proven something that shouldn't have been possible. He can control who wins, and more importantly, he can do it without being seen. But here's the thing about systems like this, Luther, they don't stay small, because once money gets involved and other people realize, well, there's access, the question stops being, should we do this? And it starts to become, how big can this get?
And that's where it all snowballs, right? Because once greed hits the gas pedal, the brakes are gone. I'm picturing this going from Monopoly to full on Ocean's 11, except with fewer tuxedos and more fries. So I can't wait to hear just how big this empire of stolen luck gets before the House of Cards comes crashing down.
Yeah, I'm surprised this isn't a movie yet. Probably just a documentary. But let's talk about the guy who helped take this form, from controlled to explosive. Old Columbo. He lived in Florida, and on the surface, he just appeared to be a regular dude. He was a family man, he was connected, but underneath that, he had something Jacobson didn't, a network. He knew people, like lots of people, and more importantly, he knew how to connect the people because Jacobson had the supply, but Columbo, he had distribution, and that combination, well, that's a pretty dangerous one. And let's let's slow it down a little bit real quick, Luther. I feel like we're jumping to the conclusion, and let's walk through exactly how this worked, because this is where it gets fascinating. Step one, Jacobson would obtain a high value winning piece during the distribution process. He would then pass it in step two to the middleman, Columbo, or someone connected to Columbo. Step three, the middleman would just go find himself a winner, not a random person, a selected person. Someone that was willing to play the role. So then the winner in step four would just go and redeem the prizes through McDonald's. Completely legitimate. There was no alarms, no red flags. And you get the prize, right? But the kickback, you had to give some of the winnings to the network. Now here's where it gets important. The winners didn't get everything. They only got a little bit of the percentage. And that percentage, well, it varied. Sometimes it was 10%, sometimes it was 20%. It could be a little bit more. It was all depending on the deal. And the rest, well, it moved quietly back through the system.
The classic you win big but not really deal. The winner gets just enough to keep them smiling, while the big chunks flow back to the masterminds. Smooth, quiet, and everyone involved thinks they're in on a little secret. Except, of course, secrets like this tend to leak eventually. So how long did they get away with it before that house of fries came tumbling down?
Before we give you a timeline, let's talk real people, because this isn't theatrical. These are actual cases that were tied to the investigation. For instance, there was a woman named Gloria Brown from Jacksonville, Florida. She, air quotes, won $1 million prize. On the surface, great story, lucky winner. But behind the scenes, she was just connected to the network. Then there was another one, Robin Colombo, Jerry's own wife, wins a major prize. Now think about how bold that is. But at this point, they're not even, trying to stay invisible. They're that confident. They're that comfortable because they've been getting away with it for years. Could you imagine that?
I mean, that's next level bold. When you're handing out winning tickets like family heirlooms, you know you're deep in. But the problem with getting too comfortable is, well, that's when the House of Cards is just waiting to fall. So I'm guessing that's coming next.
Ooh, House of Cards. Do you ever build a House of Cards?
Oh, I've tried. Let's just say my House of Cards usually collapses around the second story. But it does teach you. One wrong move, and it all comes crashing down. Just like this scheme eventually did.
Now, could you imagine, though, being one of these winners? Like, you're not just cashing in a ticket. You're stepping into a role. You're playing an actor. You have to, act surprised. You have to act excited. You have to tell your story and probably rehearse it. You have to do interviews. You have to become the face of luck. For most people watching, it's believable. They're jealous. How come it wasn't me? Because people, they win contests all the time. But what they don't see is the script behind it, because many of these winners, they were coached. They were told what to say, how to explain where they got the piece, even down to the small details, because consistency, it matters. And if the story holds, nobody's going to dig deeper, right?
Right. If you're the face of luck, you better have your lines memorized. And yeah, as long as the story looks clean, people assume it's just luck. But that's the thing. When you've got rehearsed winners, one slip up could unravel the whole script. And we both know it only takes one crack for the whole thing to start crumbling.
Yep. And, it was the time in the era where technology isn't nearly as evolved as it is now, which is kind of crazy to think. But, like, you know what I mean? There's no way they're getting away, I have to imagine, with something like that these days.
Oh, no way. These days, with all the digital tracking, surveillance, social media receipts, this would have been unraveled way faster. Back then, it was all about plausible stories and paper trails. Today, that luck would get fact-checked in seconds. So yeah, they wouldn't stand a chance in the age of digital breadcrumbs.
And here's where things get a little uncomfortable. Because as the network grows, it starts brushing up against with ties to organized crime. Now, to be clear, this wasn't some Hollywood style mafia operation with like sit down meetings and smoke filled rooms, but there were connections, associations, people who understood how to move money pretty quietly. Once those types of people get involved, things change because now there's more money, more pressure, more expectations, and, well, more risk, because the people involved, the harder it is to control. And, well, there's going to be a mistake. Are you ready for the mistake, Luther? I know you've been waiting for it.
Oh, I've been waiting for this twist. You can only juggle so many balls before one drops. And when you're dealing with those kinds of connections, yeah, mistakes don't just happen, they blow up. So let's hear it. What was the big slit that set the downfall in motion?
Okay, well, here's the thing about this scam, Luther. Jacobson, smart, like very smart. Spaced things out, different states, different people, different timelines. He really, really was able to avoid patterns. But here's the problem. Even when you try to avoid patterns, patterns still form, just not obvious ones, subtle ones, the kind you don't see unless maybe you're looking for them. And eventually, guess what? Somebody started looking for them.
And that's the catch, right? No matter how clever, the bigger it gets, the more someone eventually asks, wait a minute. And once someone's looking at patterns, even subtle ones, well, that's when the game is up. So I'm guessing that's when the investigation gears up, right?
Yeah, because somewhere along the line, Luther, someone connected to the operation, they decided to talk. They made a call. You know who they called? Not Ghostbusters, the FBI. And they said something simple but powerful. Hey, the game is rigged. Now, again, first glance, it sounds ridiculous. But here's what made it different. They provided just enough detail to make it worth a little bit of a closer look.
And that's all it takes. One credible tip, one detail that makes someone pause. Once the FBI's on the trail, it's game over. You can hide patterns from the public, but you can't hide them from an investigation with subpoenas. So I'm ready for the big collapse. Let's hear how it went down.
All right, well, the FBI, they opened an investigation. You know what they called it? Operation Final Answer. Once that happens, well, this is pretty serious. They start building profiles. They start looking at the winners. They start tracing connections. And you know what they find? They didn't find randomness. They found overlap. People connected through family, friends, shared location. Once they see that, they know, well, this isn't just random luck. This is a problem. And they need final answers.
Once the FBI sees a web instead of random dots, it's all over. And with a name like Operation Final Answer, you know they're not messing around. Patterns are fun until they lead straight to handcuffs. So let's hear how the curtain falls on this grand scheme.
Well, the FBI decided to do what they do best. You know what they followed? The money. Because let's be honest, money doesn't lie. They start identifying payments between individuals, unusual transfers, connections between winners and intermediaries. And slowly, very slowly, there's a structure that becomes pretty clear. Jacobson, Colombo, winners. There was a chain, there was a system. Now there is a problem.
And when the FBI has the chain mapped out, well, that's checkmate. What started as a secret game turns into a paper trail. And once the problem's clear, the end is just a matter of time. So I'm ready. How does the final act play out?
Well, because of instead of moving in right away, the FBI decided to go undercover. They pose as people looking to win, people who want access, and through those interactions, they got a little more evidence. They got more conversations. They got more confirmation. And by this point, Jacobson still has no idea because why would he? He's been doing this for nearly a decade successfully.
Oh, that's the classic sting. When the FBI is sitting across from you pretending to play the game, you're done and don't even know it. A decade of success makes you feel invincible, but all it takes is one undercover move to bring the whole tower down. So I bet that's when the big takedown finally happens.
Well, the FBI, they were recording conversations, and this is the turning point because now they're not guessing, they're hearing it. They're hearing the deals discussed. They're hearing the winners who are being assigned. They're being, all ears on money being negotiated. Once you have that, the case, it's, built.
Yep, once those conversations are on tape, it's game over. No more speculation, just cold, hard evidence. And when the case is built, the only thing left is the takedown. So how did it all come crashing down?
Well, the operation finally comes to an end and the arrests begin. Jerome Jacobson, he's taken into custody along with Jerry Colombo, multiple middlemen, and several winners. Dozens of people are charged, and just like that, the system collapses. Jacobson, he pled guilty, served time in federal prison. Others involved, they received various sentences depending on their role. And McDonald's, they're left dealing with the fallout because now, well, the public knows the game wasn't what it seemed.
And just like that, the whole illusion is shattered. What started as a sneaky scheme ended with headlines and handcuffs. But hey, on the bright side, at least we got one heck of a story out of it. Monopoly will never quite feel the same, will it?
No, and I'm left kind of with the same feeling as if I was playing the game of Monopoly. I want to flip the table. Just about anybody listening to this has probably taken a Monopoly piece off a set of fries or a drink or something like that, and you start collecting, then you start messaging friends, and it was always ironic that no matter how many friends you had and how many people, you could never piece together something that won. And now people know why. It's all Jacobson.
Yep, he turned a game of fries into a long con. But hey, at least now we all know we weren't just bad at collecting pieces. Someone literally had them in their pockets. Next time we'll just stick to flipping the board like a proper game night. But hey, this was a fun deep dive, minus the rigged fries.
Yeah. All right, let's go back. Let's go back to the moment. You're sitting there, peeling that sticker, thinking this might be the one, and maybe, just maybe at some point, it could have actually been. But for years, for a long stretch of time, the biggest prizes were never really up for grabs because someone behind the scenes, there was a man who wasn't playing the game. There was a man who was controlling the game.
And that's the kicker. We all thought we had a shot, but the jackpot was already spoken for. But hey, at least now we can peel our stickers knowing it's actually a fair shot. And who knows, maybe next time it really will be you. In the meantime, let's just enjoy our fries. No rigging necessary.
That's a good way to to put that. Does McDonald's still do the Monopoly game?
Yes, McDonald's Monopoly is back. After a long break, it returned in the US in October 2025 with both physical and digital game pieces. You can win prizes like $1 million, a Jeep, or a Winnebago. They've combined peel-off pieces with ACK entries to reduce fraud and boost nostalgia. So yes, you can play again.
You can play again, but let me ask you, and let me ask all the listeners. After hearing this, are you going to take a chance on the Monopoly game at McDonald's and just trust that nobody's controlling it?
You know what? I'll still peel the sticker because, hey, it's fun. But if I win $1 million, I might just do a double take. In the end, it's all about enjoying the ride and maybe a burger along the way.
Fair enough. And speaking of enjoying the ride, I have enjoyed the ride of this episode. Luther, can't thank you enough for taking some time out of your busy day to hang out with us, and all of the listeners, if you're still here, appreciate you. We'll do this again next week. Take care, everybody.